work hard to find your passion in life. Really think about it.
Peter, thank you so much for joining us here today on the Go with Manav. For those that do not know you, could you please tell them a bit more about yourself?
Yes, hi. My name's Peter Elia. I'm 52, and for the last 5 years, I've been a travel journalist, photographer, and social media influencer. My speciality is to hike the trails of the world where the path is a little bit less traveled. So, for example, I may not go to Mount Everest Base Camp, where a lot of other hikers may go, or Kilimanjaro, but I'll follow other trails, preferably in countries that are a little bit less well known, and share my stories with the readers of that particular publication or on my social media outfit.
Very cool stuff. Now, before we get to what you're doing nowadays, I would love to go back in time to when you were around 21 to 22 years old. So think of a flashback. Let's go back in time. Could you please tell us what were you doing around that age? And have you always been into hiking, adventure?
Right, yeah. I guess like some 21-year-olds, I was very lost. I was studying business and finance and HND at Croydon College. And I did that course because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do in the workplace. And eventually I dropped out of that and I decided to do some temping work until I could find like a full-time job. And then I found a job working in a theatre in the box office in the West End, and I enjoyed that for a period of time. It was fun. I moved into London for the first time, met some new friends, new colleagues, had new experiences. Although I knew that's not what I wanted to do with my life, but it was a good starting point to get some new experiences. I guess at 21, I felt that I hadn't really lived, hadn't really done anything major. So in a way, at the end of my year of being 21, it was starting to turn into something which was a good platform to kind of begin life, I guess. My family were not really outdoor people. I would, enjoy playing football with my friends, but hiking was not something that I ever considered. But it wasn't until I started to travel, and I think I was 24 when I got a round the world ticket, and I was in Nepal. And I met a couple of people who said they were going to hike, and I wasn't really sure about it. I didn't really have the kit, but I went with those guys, and suddenly it was just like, wow, this hiking thing, I've never heard about it. I don't really know anything. And it's just amazing. It's fresh air, you exercise, you meet people along the way. There's adventures. It can be tough, but it can also be so rewarding as well. And it kind of started there. So I actually did a hike called the Annapurna Circuit, which was just going from nothing to something super, super major. So I went in the deep end. I probably didn't even realize I was going in the deep end. But that was really kind of the kickstart of kind of where I'm at now.
Do you feel like that first initial hike experience you did in Nepal gave you a sense of this is what it's like to get out of my comfort zone and I like it and I want to keep doing that more? And do you feel like that was the start of many more hike experiences to come? Like, were you patient to like wait for a few months to do your second hike, or did you want to hike like right away?
I think, yes, I did enjoy being out of my comfort zone. I've always had a bit of an issue of like working 9 to 5 and just doing that kind of corporate life, which I associate with not pushing out of the comfort zone. And that appealed to me really, really strongly, that suddenly I found something where I could get out of my comfort zone. So I think probably after that experience, I was looking for the second hike. But life is strange, and I actually went the other way. And when I came back, I kind of got into the corporate world and ended up doing that for many, many years. And my second hike actually didn't happen until I was in my early 30s.
You mentioned that you worked in corporate for a couple more years before you went on your second hike.
Yeah.
What allowed you to go on that second hike?
So I think what got me back into the corporate world was, I guess, that sense of being like most of my friends and identifying with their experiences. And I was still in my 20s then, and I guess that I just wanted to be with them and be with them on a similar journey. But as time went on, I was becoming frustrated because deep down, this is not really what I wanted to do. This didn't represent me. So it was always in the back of my mind to do another hike. And I knew it was going to be a major one. And it ended up I went to Peru to start doing the Inca Trail. And then from there, I did other trails in Peru. And that was really the beginning of me thinking, yeah, there's something in this and I want to develop it.
I hope was the third hike like a lot sooner, I'm guessing, than years to come.
Yeah, well, I started to do more hiking, but I didn't know, this is where the issue was. I didn't know how do you make a job out of it apart from being like a guide? How can you monetize this? And I was kind of left in my 30s with this dilemma, which is I love hiking, I love travel, I love exploring the roads less traveled. How can I make this a job? So that was that decade of how to do it. And I attended lots of workshops and talks and things like that. And I didn't find that there was anyone that was doing the kind of thing that I wanted to do. So that was a little bit of a frustration. And also perhaps the way I was researching probably wasn't the best. The internet resources back then were not as good as they are now. Socials were coming out in my mid 30s. So that's been a game changer for me in the last 10 years. Yeah, I'm very thankful for the internet and social media because that's helped me connect with like-minded people.
I know in your social media platforms, you actually use the name The Man Who Hiked the World. What inspired you to choose that name specifically?
I'm a big fan of David Bowie, and one of my favorite songs is his song "The Man Who Sold the World." And it was maybe just a few days or a few weeks after he passed away, I decided to take that name and just switch the word "sold" to the word "hike" or "hiked." And I bought the domain on the internet, and I started Instagram in 2016, the year he passed away, without any plan of knowing what to put on there, how to do it. It was a bit of an inside joke. Hadn't hiked the world, and what does that mean anyway? But I just like the name, and I guess it was like an alter ego, and I wanted to become this, a bit like Bowie. I wanted to become this character that does all the things that I want to do in life. And I think it's weirdly kind of helped me develop those ideas and go and have those experiences on my trekking travels.
Do you feel like that name, it's like a persona for you where you feel a lot more confident because you have that name to back you up in a way? Or do you feel like social media has helped you a lot to put yourself forward?
Oh, social media's helped a lot. 100%. I mean, this sort of backing up the persona thing, it's really helpful. I mean, I wouldn't describe myself as a shy person, but I guess I kind of felt as me, who cares about me, Peter, really, a guy that's never written before, never taken any photographs. And I want to kind of develop an idea around hiking the paths less traveled. And I thought by moving into a persona, it gives me more confidence to reach out to people and to explore ways of working together. I just thought it might be a bit different, if that email, like the one that I sent you, the man who hiked the world, a little bit different than John Smith, at gmail.com. Just might stand out a bit, I don't know, might be a good starting point.
I like that. I mean, I actually did not consider that at first, but now I can see your point why the smaller details really do matter. So it's something I'm definitely going to keep an eye on as well when I'm interacting with other people in email, how they present themselves. Because I wouldn't realize that that can actually land you an opportunity you wouldn't realize that has the potential to. So, like how we have it right now. So, it's amazing.
Yeah, I think when it can work is when you describe what you do within that email address.
Oh,
If you
totally.
don't, then I think it can be confusing, and it might actually go the other way. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you started hiking from a long time ago and you also mentioned now that you write and you also do photography.
Mhm.
So how did both of these come together to create your brand right now? Like, did they both come years later? Did they come while you were working in the corporate world, or were they just passions of yours from a young age?
Okay, so yeah, it's a great question. So in my mid 30s, I kind of ditched the corporate world. I went back to university, and because I didn't finish my business and finance degree, so I went and did a maths and stats degree. I thought, right, I want to become a teacher, so I started to do that. Then I had a part-time job while I was studying, working in a museum, and it was during that time because I had a bit more time off than I did in the corporate world to explore new things. So when I set up the Instagram 2016, the man who hyped the world, I decided, right, what kind of thing would this guy do? And I went to Greenland and I signed up with a group. I was very intimidated, a lot of kind of ex-army, ex-navy type of people. 9, 10 day hike. You could not resupply, so you had to carry all of your food, your tent, everything with you on your backpack. 20, 20 kg, nothing like what I've ever done before. And I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to video the experience like a video diary. I had all sorts of problems there. I think my fitness wasn't great. I even lost the tent poles, which is a really, really bad thing to do. It means I couldn't erect my tent properly. It can get pretty cold out there. It can also get really hot out there. So it was a really, really rich experience with difficulties, but with some big rewards as well. It's an amazing, amazing country. I did that. I put that video, I edited it, and I put that video on YouTube. And it did overall, it did pretty well. I think it got about 10,000 views because not many people had actually videoed that particular Arctic Circle trek. But a publisher watched it and got in contact with me and said, I've got a magazine in Denmark. I really like what you did with your video. Um, would you like to write about it for my magazine? And have you got any photographs? And I decided that I wanted to give him the photographs, but I was too shy to write anything because I wasn't diagnosed as a dyslexic at school, but I always struggled with English. And but yet years later, I was diagnosed being dyslexic, and I had a bit of a thing about I don't want to show people my writing. That's the last thing that's like exposes me as somebody that's not particularly good at that sort of thing. So he really pestered me. He said, look, photos are good, but it'd be really good to get a first-hand experience. Don't worry if it's not very good. Just send it to me. I can edit it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so it's called Greenland Today, the magazine. And I thought, okay, wow, that's not going to have that many people looking at it. So I thought, okay, I'll write it and I'll give it to him. But what I didn't realize is that Greenland Today is massive on Instagram and Facebook. When the article came out, he put at the end, the editor put at the end of my Instagram handle, my Facebook handle. And after it came out, my Instagram was going nuts. I went from like 6 followers to like 1,000 in a week. I mean, it was just like, wow, unbelievable. And that gave me a lot of confidence and spurred me on to think, right, well, actually, this is a really good way to grow my Instagram. If I just could do a little bit of writing with it and some photography with it and put the photographs in a magazine. And it became a kind of slowly thing to do while I was working in the museum. So it was a gradual process.
Do you feel like after this experience, when you were given the opportunity to, first of all, write your first article, did that make things easier because of what the audience reacted by them realizing that, oh, great, his content is actually good. I like it. Does that give you more of a reason to believe in yourself in a way? And then it kind of gives you a sense where I'm like, oh, I want to now write more.
Yeah, I think so. But it was still for me, it was still an uphill journey after that because I think my photographs were pretty good, and that kind of disguised the sort of writing aspects, which looking when I look back, I cringe at it now. I mean, it just wasn't particularly good writing, but it's a starting point, and I did another couple of kind of small articles for Scandinavian newspapers about hiking in Norway and stuff like that. But during that process, I began to Google a lot and watch YouTube videos about how to become a writer, travel writer. So what I liked about that is learning on the job. You're actually doing it real, but at the same time, I felt that I could make mistakes. It wasn't going to be overly serious. And I also asked the editors just to critique my work and just tell me where I can get better. That was kind of my kind of university of getting into that kind of workspace. And then the next level for me was to contact the national newspapers in the UK. And that's where it got really scary for me, because when I did get my first commission, I thought, right, this is it now, imposter syndrome. I'm going to be exposed. They're going to say, oh, the
Mm.
guy he can't write. He's no good, blah, blah, blah. And I was really nervous when I wrote for The Guardian. And that was my kind of first kind of big break. It was a kind of simple article. It was like the sort of the top 5 most remote hikes in Europe that anyone could do, because it had to reach kind of like a broad base, being a national newspaper. To be honest, it's just it's what you were saying before. It's this getting out of your comfort zone. It's not just with hiking and
Mm.
photography, but for me, probably the hardest was writing. That was the thing that really scared me. And every time I wrote for a bigger publication, I would really doubt myself whether I could do it. And I have to be honest with you, some editors got back to me and said, "This is terrible. What you've written, go back and write it
Mm.
again." And then I'd have more issues about my insecurities about writing. But again, I was so determined that I wanted to get this right. And the reason being was that not so much that that I loved writing. I began to love it, but it was more that I wanted to stay in that space, in that area of work. Didn't want to go back into the corporate world. I love hiking. I love travel. I love photography, but all of those things don't pay particularly well in compared to the journalism aspect for me, which can allow
Mm.
me to make a living out of this experience. So I was determined to make it work. And fortunately, I've just about managed to do that.
Oh, that's amazing. That's great news. Would you feel like that was the most challenging part of your career? Was definitely the writing aspect?
Yeah, absolutely. At the beginning, I'd just write the whole thing kind of like from A to B. I started the hike here. I had these experiences in the middle and I finished it there. And I think it's not just even about sort of decent writing to explain the A to B, but it's about really great storytelling, which helps the reader turn the page, intrigues them, then also wants to influence them to maybe follow in your footsteps. Or even if they're just an armchair reader, to maybe excite them into the kind of thing that they're interested in. Maybe they don't want to hike the world, but they have got a passion for caving or rock climbing or running, or just, I don't know, going for a run around the park, for 5Ks, which could be a big thing for them. So there's always challenges with writing, and sometimes the biggest challenge of all is the beginning of it, because I can sit down at the laptop, write the heading at the top, and just sit there for half an hour, and nothing comes out. Which, when you're working in industry, it doesn't really work like that. You've always got a task to do. It's been hopefully explained well to you, and you can normally crack on with it. But when you're your own boss and you have to come up with the thoughts about how are you going to make this interesting for the reader, how are you going to compel them to keep turning the pages, it's can be quite disconcerting at times, because
Can
you're like
imagine.
spending an hour and you haven't done anything. And it's like, that's your job, So it's a roller coaster. There's always things to learn, but you keep at it, you keep working hard. Eventually, you do get better.
Carrying on with what you said on getting better, how did you not overcome your imposter syndrome, but how did you start believing in yourself? Because through the years, you now write for many publications. I'm sure through the years' time, you've been able to produce content. And usually at the start, it's always the hardest because many people give up.
Yeah,
So how did you get through that through the years to the point where you're still writing now and actually writing, hiking, and doing photography?
I'd like to think, because I love it so much, that comes through. And I think that editors may have given me a chance, not because I'm the best writer or the best photographer or the best hiker, but it's just that I think I display in my pitching to the editor that I'm the real deal. I'm really passionate about this. And I think that authenticity, whether it's me or anyone you ever meet in your life, when they explain something to you, and it might not even be something that you might be into, but when they explain it to you and they love it so much, I think we tend to respond to them in a really positive way. Like we want to give them a shot, we want to give them a chance. I think that's really helped me because there's been a lots of editors can be quite tough at times. They speak their own mind. They don't. There's no niceties. If they think your work's rubbish, they'll let you know. But at the same time, I've experienced lots of acts of kindness from editors to say, look, you haven't got this right, but let me give you another chance. I know that you want to make this work, and I think that's given me a lot of confidence to, in the end, back my own ability. And I think that's the key thing. When you've gone through the experiences before and you managed to get through them before, that you can say to yourself, right, okay, this article's not going well. I don't really know what to write. I don't know what the angle is. I've kind of lost the whole plot here. But I then remember to what happened before in other experiences and back myself that I'll go for a walk, come back, I can sit at the laptop, go again, and it's going to work out eventually.
Words really do matter, and I don't think people realize how we can easily overthink what someone says if it's negative. But if they were to say something, they might not realize it can actually make it or break it for us. So I'm usually really careful with how I phrase my words sometimes, just because I know the person receiving it on the other end will actually receive some sort of impact from it. So now I want to ask, what has been your proudest moment? Because I feel like we've talked a lot about you going on this roller coaster ride in your career journey so far. There definitely has to be something you're very proud of, whether that's a hike that you, to this day, you can tell many people about it just because it was an unreal experience, or you being able to monetize yourself. Has there been one that stands out to you?
Both of those, as I touched on before, I think the Greenland trip to kind of have the balls to go and do that. I was really scared. It wasn't just about. I mean, I didn't even know about the writing side of it. I just didn't think I was kind of fit enough or good enough to hang with that crowd because it was that type of hike where you had to be self-sufficient for such a long time. I'd never done anything like that. So that would certainly be one. I think growing the community on Instagram would have to be another one. Really surprised how many people that follow me have an interest in hiking, not to the same degree, but they've just really like to follow my journey and where I end up. I think a lot of my followers just have a curiosity about the world because I end up in places like Kyrgyzstan or northern Peru or Malawi and places like that. And often they're just like, what is it like? What is this? It's a place I've seen in the atlas. I don't really know anything about it. So I'm kind of humble with that. I mean, to have all those followers is really, really special to me. I think from the writing side, I think getting published by the BBC it's probably been my highlight to date. I mean, that is doesn't get much bigger than that for BBC Travel to say yes, come and write for us. And it was such a great experience. I learned so much from the editor Elliot Stein about how to write a compelling hiking story and how to really tease the audience and kind of get them going and keep it going from start to finish. So yeah, there's a lot of proud moments. But I think on the smaller levels, it's those acts of kindness that I've had along the way. It's like they're rooting for you to do well because they feel it from you that you really want this too. And I like that.
That's so nice to hear that you have such a supportive community. And I think that's the best thing to have, having people who back you up, but are also there rooting for you. It's always hard to believe in yourself all the time. But if other people believe you, there's nothing else you need more than that, to be honest. So that's so nice that you've been able to work through those years.
Thank
Can't
you.
believe it's been about like 8 years now since you
Yeah.
probably started with Instagram to get to a point where you're just doing great things. And that now leads me to the last question I would like to ask, because we started with what were you doing at age 21? Now I want to ask, what would you say to your 21-year-old self now, looking at where you've come to this point in your time in your life?
That's a great question. I I would probably say work hard to find your passion in life. Really think about it. When I was 21, and I can remember this quite clearly, I thought it would come to me, right? I thought I don't know what I want to do at 21. I'm going to work in the theatre. I'll maybe do that for a year or two. Then I'll do some traveling. Then when I come back, I'll get a corporate, well paid job. I'll get married. I'll have children. I'll buy, get property. I do all of these things, and I'll be very happy, without ever thinking, what is it that I really want to do with my life? What drives me? What gets me out of the bed first thing in the morning? Less about being focused on money and more being focused on how you feel when you do a job that makes you tick and makes you want to share and makes you want, puts a smile on your face and does all of these things. I think it's important. I mean, we spend so many hours of our week working, so why not make that something that really makes us feel so special about ourselves and makes a contribution to other people and touches their lives? I would not have thought about that at 21. I didn't even think about that at 41. I mean, I just not thinking about that. And this is where social media and YouTube really comes alive for me, because over the last 10 years, I've listened to Tony Robbins, I've listened to people of that kind of ilk, and it's great, some of the lectures that they give, some of the stories that they tell. There's so many courses now. It's all out there. Don't watch Netflix. Don't spend all of your time doing all these things that, yeah, they're entertaining, but they kind of waste your time. Television waste your time. All of these things, just stop doing them. Use these kind of communication methods like YouTube, and there's so much free stuff on there, so much good stuff. There's a lot of bad stuff too, but you choose what you want to key in. You choose what you want to watch. What's the stuff that really resonates with you? So I think that I kind of expanded on I kind of hijacked your question, because it was like what I'd say to my 21-year-old self, but actually what I would have said to my 41-year-old self as well. Kind of the same thing, but ask questions, surround yourself, a bit of a cliche, but surround yourself with people that are also doing things that kind of would motivate you. It doesn't have to be exactly the same thing, but are they maybe starting to run their own business? Are they going on an exciting journey as well? There's so many things that we can do. And my 21-year-old self was a very passive young man, I think. So that's what I say to you.
That was great. Trying to take it all in right now, but thank you. Thank you for being here, Peter.
No worries. My pleasure.
That was really good. And for people that want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, what would be the best way for them?
Yep. So first of all, my website, www.themanwhohiketheworld.com. And also if they want to follow on Instagram, it's the same handle as The Man Who Hiked the World. And also on Facebook as well. It's the same. It's The Man Who Hiked the World on there too. So they want to just click on there, find out a little bit more about what I do, or they're looking for hiking inspiration or tips, or they just want to get in contact with me, feel free. Always here to help.
Thank you, Peter. And for those who are watching right now, make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Stay tuned for a new guest and an episode coming out in the next week or two. Thank you, Peter, for joining us. Speak soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye.